Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video I'll be sharing some quick-fire notes on the English language, viewpoints and perspectives, paper 2, and really concentrating on question 5. But first of all, let's try and understand more about this viewpoints and perspectives paper and what it's worth. The paper itself counts for 50% of the English language GCSE and has within it 80 marks. For questions 1 to 4, it focuses on two non-fiction texts. One from the 19th century and the other could be from the 20th or the 21st century. Students will be given 15 minutes to read and annotate the extracts that they're given and plan for their answers. More than anything, every single question that you have demands that you read and highlight the key words so you know exactly where you're pitching your response. Question 5 though, you might be thinking, well, where do I get my marks? The question itself is really writing to present a point of view, and it's assessed in terms of two AOs, AO5 and AO6. All you need to know is this one question is worth a quarter of your whole GCSE. It's not a question to miss. And typically it would sound something like this, a controversial statement. Homework has no value and it's too difficult. Students should relax in their free time. Write an article for a broadsheet newspaper in which you argue your point of view on the statement. So it's 40 marks and actually should take 45 minutes. This means that the reading section, questions 1 to 4 and its reading time in total should take you an hour. So you might be thinking, well, how do I actually make the best use of a question like this? First things first, you need to identify the purpose of the writing. In this case, you're arguing your view on the statement. The audience, well, we know it's the readership of a broadsheet newspaper. So we're looking at educated adults who seek to read a deep and meaningful article on the issue. And we know that the form of this writing is a newspaper, and a broadsheet newspaper, which is expecting ambitious vocabulary. The basic minimum of what you're expecting to do with so much weight put on this question demands that you plan your ideas. And later in this video, I'll be sharing my suggestion about how you could plan each paragraph. Ultimately though, you need a very clear structure to outline your argument so that nobody reading your response finds it confusing or doesn't feel like they've understood your point of view. Another tip I have around planning is I would recommend that you write your opening and final sentence on your plan. Far too often we start with great intentions on a writing task, but if we don't plan the end of our writing, we may not know where our writing is heading as we move on beyond paragraph 3. We're looking at viewpoint, we're looking at argument. We really need to employ, therefore, our persuasive devices. We'll recap briefly in a moment what we mean by aphorist, and you may know another acronym, but the idea of using these devices at our fingertips is absolutely paramount. As we're building an argument, we need to use discourse markers, and by that I mean consequently, however, on the other hand, similarly, clearly, as a result, finally, fundamentally. It's an eloquent way of signalling the logic behind your writing and your argument. Beneath all of this, we're expected to use formal language. So you might find yourself trying different sentence starters to make yourself seem eloquent. But then, once we've tried to formalise the whole process, it's worthwhile for you to ensure you have proofread. If you haven't, it's going to be the examiner who spots your mistake before you could have. So, firstly, what should the structure of your response really look like? To answer that question properly, we've got to consider how can you best convey and share your viewpoint. So here's a 4-paragraph realization that compresses for you the different ways you could navigate an answer on viewpoint without losing your logic. So, paragraph 1 should share the problem. If we take the question that homework it leaves children little time to relax, well, that is the problem. Argue why it's a problem. Which leads us naturally on to paragraph 2. Offer reasons on the causes of this problem. Is it that head teachers and teachers and parents feel that homework is a solution to children one day underachieving? Dig deeper than just the surface level of the problem or issue you're investigating. Offer genuine reasons why this issue concerns you to try and galvanise and interest the reader. So that by paragraph 3, you can share with the reader how they could support you and your view of how to solve the problem. Maybe it's that homework's abolished in schools. Maybe it's much more tentative, that we would just allow for there to be a limit on how much homework is set. And then finally, paragraph 4, well, it should summarise your viewpoint and the solution you see to the problem. By navigating your response in this way, you're sharing a viewpoint concisely, clearly, and cogently, with a logical thread to every word you share. So naturally, a question for us now is, what devices can I use in each of these paragraphs to help share a viewpoint? Simply put, this next section of the video is signalling for you what the device is with an example, so you know how it works, and then maybe you can start considering whereabouts you would place it in your answer. So the first A-Forest device that you may have come across is alliteration. And here's the example: homework hardly helps. The function of alliteration emphasises the issue you are unpicking, and it's quite useful as a headline or the opening to your writing, just to get punchy and straight into your point. Now, an anecdote usually offers a message within its story and helps amplify the repercussions of the issue. I would put this in paragraph 1 or 2 of my response to emphasise the problem. Here we have Mumsnet conducting a study showing that parents are very worried about their children because their children aged 9 are getting an hour of homework a night. That sounds very unfeasible, it sounds very unrealistic and very unhelpful for them. We're already amplifying here the dangers of too much homework. Now, next up is a fact, or facts in general. These are meant to be substantiated, proven truths, not just opinions. So schools set homework to check student understanding. That sounds like a fact, because it is. That's the message that schools send out. But be aware, opinions are someone's viewpoint or perspective. The whole piece is meant to be a massive opinion. A fact has to be substantiated by genuine proof. Next up, we have flattery. In this case, you're not really going to be flattering the examiner by how they dress, because you don't know how they dress. You're writing an article. So you're probably going to be imploring them as intelligent individuals. I think that's the right move. It's professional and slick. That's why I implore intelligent individuals like us to actively support schools and students to change their mindset. That sounds much more formal and professional than any other kind of flattery you might be seeking to use. So referring back to opinions, this is something that demands we take on someone else's perspective. So here I've argued, head teachers argue that without homework, students would become more lazy and not recall content from their subjects. I like this initiative and idea with my opinion because I'm projecting what a number of other people who are concerned about homework in general are saying. And it's also a counter argument. A great argument always considers what somebody else on the other side with another opinion says. Next up is a rhetorical question. What makes it rhetorical is that it simply gets the reader thinking and it does not demand an actual answer. It's quite powerful at the start of a piece of writing. and often can be quite powerful at the end to leave the reader thinking on. Here's my example. Do you want to fail at life? I think if we asked every person on the planet, they would seek to say no. Repetition. Well, quite a famous example of repetition here. It functions, though, to emphasise your main point. Working too much or work is too much here. Emotive language is the next one, and it's used to heighten the emotions and concerns and anxieties we have around the issue. I would place this across my writing, not just in paragraphs 1 and 2, but across the piece, just to really keep alive the concerns that the writer has. So here we've said teachers feel disheartened and students feel demoralised. We can't escape here the damage to homework. Next up we have exaggeration. Lifting a pen is harder than lifting a mountain when you've been at school for 8 hours. Now this is clearly far-fetched, and it's often quite useful to try and think of off-the-wall examples. What you're seeking to do is use exaggeration to prove that the issue is unreliable and dangerous, and in this case alarming for young people. So next up is a statistic. It's a numerical fact. When I say that 45% of students have anxiety issues according to Childline's most recent study with schools across the UK, I automatically seem credible. That's why we use a statistic, and I would place that into paragraph 2 of my response. Because what I'm signalling is this is a real reason why you need to get interested in the problem I'm presenting to you. Let's solve it together. Finally, triples by saying things like dejected, disheartened and disappointed. What I'm doing is amplifying the 3 concerns I have around the problem I'm sharing. A triple offers 3 things. Famously, Shakespeare said, friends, Romans, countrymen. All you need to do is think of 3 things that go quite nicely together to share your viewpoint. So, what do I actually need to remember for question 5? You must know the purpose, audience and form of whatever the question is to ensure that you answer it and plan appropriately for it. Before you begin, decide on exactly what the appropriate tone is. Just as I've explained in this video, plan your answer and order your paragraphs. The minimum is 4 paragraphs, as outlined here. My top tip for students who really worry about the quality of their written communication is that you learn formal vocabulary and try and spell out 30 ambitious words that you formally haven't got right. Reflect on the language techniques that your viewpoint writing needs, like a forest, and potentially even use vocabulary that you can find in the extracts provided in questions 1 to 4, if you believe you know what they mean. And finally, proofread your work. Aside from that, you've got it wrapped up with a bow. Good luck with your exam. Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar?